It's what's anchored my soul. Hey, anchored my soul. See what I did there?
Thank you.
Yeah. Shameless plug.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Anchor for My Soul devotion. And today I have some very special guests. I have Shane and Alynne in Lima, and they are pastors at Ambassadors over in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and this is the church that I currently go to right now. And today we're going to be talking a little bit on perspective on being a pastor and what it is to be a leader in that kind of position as a pastor. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Shane, do you want to kind of talk about a little bit about your story and how you became a pastor? I know that was kind of your generation.
Mm-hmm.
You came from, a family of pastors. So do you want to kind of get into how you really were called into that position, if that was something you really wanted to do?
Yeah, so I had no plans for ministry, no plans of being in ministry. I come from a long line of pastors. So my great-grandfather was a pastor, grandfather's a pastor, father's a pastor. And I thought I was going to be a journalist. So I went to journalism school right out of high school, right to URI to become a journalist. And about halfway through college is when I really had a moment with the Lord where he just radically transformed my plans. It was at a winter retreat in 2007. And I'll never forget it, Saturday night service. And just there was this moment. There's no way to explain it. It wasn't like angels coming out of the sky. It wasn't anything like audible,
right? But
it was just a moment that radically transformed my life. And I just knew from that weekend on that I would never be the same. It was weird because this retreat coincided with a few transitions that our youth group was going through at the time. And so we had sort of this moment where the youth group was looking for leadership. And there was no one to take it. And so as a pastor's son, if there's no one to take it, pastor's son takes it. And so I stepped into a role that I felt really unequipped for, and honestly didn't know if I was called to. I just knew that I was willing to do whatever it was that God had for me. And so it's weird because some people ask, like, how did you find God's will? Yeah. Like as if it's like some hidden treasure that you need to somehow like go out with I don't know. But it wasn't like that. It was like God's will existed, and the more I aligned myself to God, the more I stepped into what he was calling me to. So it wasn't like a treasure to be uncovered. It was really like an alignment of my heart to what God's will was for my life. And so now 13 years later, I don't look back and see it as something that was forced on me or something that I didn't ask for, but really it was the natural progression of what it meant for me to seek God's heart. And so now I've been a pastor full-time for 3 years, and honestly, it is the greatest joy of my life to serve alongside my wife at our church in Pawtucket and lead an amazing community of people. But pastoring didn't come to me because of my family history or because it was just the family business, because it wasn't. It really is something that I think God called me individually to. And I think that's so important, is that I didn't jump on it simply because my family did it. I think that was an added benefit, but it was really because God had gifted me and graced me for this position and this purpose. So
that's so good. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
And then Alynne, do you want to go ahead and kind of get into your story and how you became a pastor's wife to Shane?
So I always told myself I would never marry a pastor.
Tell God what you won't do.
Tell God what you won't do, and just watch it unfold before your eyes. Right. That's basically my story. But no, I grew up in the church, and I used to serve in every and any ministry that needed help. And because I was so involved in ministry, I saw the weight of a pastor's life and the pastor's wife and how they were treated. And I always told myself, no matter what, I am not marrying a pastor. But you know what? Life happened, and we met at church. I was serving, he was preaching, and we met, and long story short, very long story short, we fell in love, and I became a pastor's wife. But in my mind, nothing really changed for me as far as being involved in the church or doing community with people, because I was already so involved in church, and I've always loved to love people and to encourage people, and taking on the role didn't feel like a weight to me because I kind of had sort of been doing life in ministry all along. So the title of a pastor's wife, it didn't really change anything for me specifically, I never really felt the weight of it because I had been involved in ministry. So I just started doing it alongside of.
It was a good transition. Like,
It was
a big
smooth.
shocker.
It wasn't. No.
It's the natural next step in her journey.
Yeah, it sounds scary.
Right.
You know, like I don't even like to refer to myself as a pastor's wife because I'm like, what? Like I just go to church and like
I happen to be married.
I just happen to be married to the guy that preaches every Sunday. But I mean, like, let's just be friends. Let's serve. Let's do whatever needs to be done to make the kingdom grow.
Yeah, and I think just that having you guys have that kind of perception and just that whole community feel, like that just is what makes like and builds a healthy church too. Awesome.
Definitely. And that's something that started before us, honestly.
Yes.
We inherited that feeling of like, it's not just these people that are up on a platform that you see once a week, but we're doing life alongside. We always say we lead from a place of friendship, and we really do mean that. Is that it's not simply about like this Sunday thing, but it's about how we walk this out in the day to day.
It's about just doing life together.
And so like that was her personality prior to me, you know, and praise God for that. And
it could have been a harsh reality.
Because if I had to drag her along,
like dang it,
that would have been
gotta go to church again.
Rough. And it was a natural next step for me too, because I was already in it, had seen it. And so it wasn't something foreign to me. It really was just like, all right, God, cool, let's do this.
Yeah, definitely.
And you grow into it.
Yeah. But I'm sure too, now that you guys are married and kind of have like stepped into that pastoral position, how do you overcome those pressures that you do face? Because I'm sure, like, you know, every year, every day is not going to be the same.
Right.
You guys get new pressures, new things coming at you. So how do you overcome that?
Shoot, that's a loaded question. Because here's the thing about being a pastor, being pastoral ministry, being in leadership, is that it's really never the same. And no 2 days are ever. You never know what's going to happen. You never know who's going to call.
Right.
You never know
What
where you're needed. What tragedy is happening.
Yeah.
And so it really is, I think, the best way to alleviate that pressure. Because if you start thinking about everything that could happen, you'll drive yourself nuts.
Oh, yeah.
Worrying about all these people all the time. The best way to alleviate that pressure is to make sure that you're intentionally developing your personal health and well-being, which means like caring for your soul, taking time to do what is fun for you, investing in your marriage, having quality time with people that you love and care for, not always being on the job, even though you are technically always on the job. It's an odd reality, but the best thing that we ever did and are doing is to try to fight for our health. Because if we are sane and healthy, then we are able to minister from a place of health instead of like being in a place of burnout. And now we can't pastor anybody well because then we really the ones that need to be pastored first. So
So good.
that's a whole lot of stuff, but I hope that makes sense.
Makes sense.
That was really good. And I also admire the humility and transparency you guys too, just pastoring. And, you know, there are, you know, a lot of young adults and everyone in different seasons at our church. So why is that so important to kind of have those different characteristics as pastors?
Yeah. I think one thing that I've noticed about our generation, we like real and we like raw.
Right.
And I think maybe in the past, pastors, like, people wanted to look up to them and they were this perfect picture pastor who could commit no wrong. And the reality is we're not perfect and we're just human beings and we're doing life together. And we've come to find that what our generation wants is real and raw.
Right.
And we have no problem being real and being raw with our people and just being like, hey, you're struggling, like, yeah, me too. Like, you've had a rough day, girl, me too. But you know what? God is still good and God's going to carry us through it. And then at the end of the day, we're just doing life together, just real people doing this real thing for a real God.
I'm a Christian before I'm a pastor. I'm a Christ follower before I step on a platform. And so vulnerability comes from that. It doesn't come from the position that I possess. That's an added on thing to my life. Rather, it's like, no, I'm a Christ follower living out what it means to follow Jesus in our day. And so I try to lead from that place. Like, hey, I'm a man. I'm a man of God who's married to a woman of God. Yes, we get to lead this church. And it's an honor. But also, we got bills to pay. Life happens. There's good days, bad days, good weeks, bad weeks. We have heartbreak. We have pain. We have stress. We know what anxiety feels like. We know what depression feels like. We know what it feels like to get help for your marriage. We know we know we're living out everyday life. And so we've chosen to lead from that position. Because I think that when you lead from that position, you're setting yourself up for the people that you're leading can trust in you, and they can have confidence that this guy, this couple, these people, they care about me because they know what I'm going through, and they're choosing to feel my pain alongside. And so with vulnerability does come like a risk, right? Because you're setting yourself up maybe to be hurt, but that's okay. I'm willing to be hurt so that hurt people can. And so that's something that we've really decided to follow as our mantra. And like I said, this is not stuff that we designed. This is stuff that we've inherited, and we're just choosing to live that out for another season of ministry.
I think that relatability is so important too, because like you had said, people sometimes look at pastors and think like, oh my gosh, they have
it all together.
Exactly. But and you hear things, in the past years about, these pastors kind of committing suicide because they have so much pressure on them, when it's like they're just like us, they're not perfect. No one's perfect. And being able to have that relatability and transparency to be like, hey, me too, like, and always like available for that call, I think is like really important.
It so is.
What are some verses that have really helped you guys kind of as you've transitioned into a pastor and in that leadership role? What's really something that you guys always lean on for Bible verses? Sure.
So I always stand on, this has been a verse for me really since that weekend that my life was transformed, when Paul tells the Corinthians, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has conceived what God has prepared for those who love him. Which means I don't need to worry about what no eye has seen, no ear has heard. I just need to worry about, am I loving God? Because if I am loving God with all my heart, I know that my future is going to be filled with what no eye has seen, ear has heard, or mind has conceived. And so that just gives me hope. It gives me hope as a Christian, as a man of God. It gives me hope as a pastor, just to know the church isn't mine, the church is his, and I just get to be a steward of it. And so I stand on that promise. And then the second promise that I stand on is the words of Joshua, where it says, fear not, for I have called you. Don't be dismayed. I have called your name. I'm with you, strong and courageous. Just all these resounding words in chapter 1, where God is just reminding Joshua, hey, like, I got you. Like, it's gonna be okay. And man, I need that reminder every day that God got me. So I stand on that promise. And so those have been 2 points of just like, it's what's anchored my soul. Hey, anchor for my soul. See what I did there?
Thank you.
Yeah. Shameless plug.
For me, I would say Galatians 6:9. Don't grow weary in doing good, because in due time we will reap a harvest. And I think in life sometimes we just get tired, but I just keep reminding myself, don't grow weary. There is a purpose behind this. So whenever I get down or whenever I'm struggling, I just tell myself, like, pick yourself up. There are better days coming.
Right.
And you never know who needs your encouragement today, who needs your hug today, who needs your smile today. So then I pick myself right back up, and I try not to get weary. So
it's a good word.
Yeah. And then lastly, what are some like advice that you guys received from your mentors and family and peers that have really kind of helped you guys as well?
Confidence. Know what God gave you and walk in it. Like, shamelessly walk into it. One of my mentors, Pastor Manny Arango, who we love, look up to him and his wife so much. Every time I have a conversation with him, what he instills in me is confidence. Like, look, God's called you to something, step into it shamelessly. That'll require risk, like I was talking about. It'll require sometimes what looks like failure, but that's okay. It just means you're on the journey. It's fine. And I think that word of just like, hey, I haven't been given a spirit of fear. I've been given the spirit of power. So walk in it. Own it. And when you own it, man,
everything changes.
Yeah, everything changes. Your body, your posture, everything changes. And all of a sudden, it's contagious. Man, like, we need a generation of young pastors that know who they are. Young men and women know who they are, know what God has called them to, and we walk into it just shamelessly with confidence. Yeah, we fail sometimes. Yep, stuff happens. Yep, life is hard. But man, if we just know what God has given to us, we're good.
Yeah. It's not like God confidence.
It's not arrogance.
No.
It's just like,
and it's not being cocky. It's just knowing.
Yeah.
I know who called me, and I know what I'm called for. And anything less is a waste of time.
Yep. That's it.
Yeah. I think for me, just having friends that are kind of in ministry and doing the same thing as you're doing, that you can sit down and share stories and just be like, man, like, rough season, you know, like rough time.
And they get it.
And they get it. They know the pain. They know the struggle. And a couple good friends of ours, they said one thing and it stuck to me. You need to have thick skin and a soft heart.
Yeah.
You know, thick skin to not get hurt, to not be taken
Take
by
everything offensively.
Yes, don't get offended, but a soft heart to still feel
Yeah.
and to still be able to minister and do life,
Yeah.
and not let your heart get hardened. You know. So I remember that a friend of ours told us that, and I never forgot it. And I keep telling myself that anytime I'm starting to get offended, I'm like, nope. Thick skin, soft heart.
Yeah.
Can't
Thick
lose.
skin, soft heart.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for
Thank you.
joining me on this. This was like super informational and just like a really good insight and a good perspective on kind of like how you guys go through this whole, you know, leadership pastoral, because like I said, it can be like a struggle at times, you know, but just being real and genuine is really important. So
Thank you for shedding so much light on it.
I
We
know.
appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for being amazing.
Yeah.
Guys.
Like, subscribe, share,
Yes.
pound the
There you
like button.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for joining us on another Ink for My Soul devotion. And like Shane said, don't forget to comment, like, and share this video. And we will see you guys next time.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Yeah.